what's your take on Bitcoin Reserve? Do you think it's more a positive thing or not for crypto industry and for economy of the US?
It's possible that Trump is really crazy with stuff that he does. I mean, we all know Trump. He's erratic. He's kind of funny, but like he's erratic, right? And so it's possible that he does some really dumb stuff over the next few years, and the U.S. population whiplashes back, and they want a Democratic president next.
Why stablecoins are so popular this year, and we see a lot of new stablecoins. We see like even Mika. Tether was cancelled in Mika, and they find a new way to be presented there. Like, why so?
Business in Europe that no longer are planning to, they literally can't do business in Europe anymore with a lot of these services that they were providing because of this regulatory framework. But AI agents, pretty cool. AI is just getting insanely good. Like the acceleration rate is just pretty wild. And for a long time, I thought AI x crypto was like a scam. It didn't make any sense. But with agents, it makes sense to me. It's like, oh, well, like what's the actual rational overlap between these two technologies? It's that you give the AIs money. That's like the overlap.
Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Voice of Web3 powered by CoinGape, when we explore breaking news and game-changing ideas with the industry leaders. My name is Yali, and today's guest has been in the crypto and blockchain industry since the very beginning. So meet Austin King, co-founder and COO of Omni Network and an entrepreneur whose company was acquired by Ripple. A bit about Omni Network is the abstraction layer for the Ethereum ecosystem, allowing developers access to users and liquidity across rollups without any upgrading to their smart contracts.
Yeah.
Hi, Austin. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining. If I was mistaken, please correct me.
No, yeah. No, it just helps me think honestly about how we need to simplify our communications and just like how we communicate about what Omni is. Because yeah, like you kind of covered, there's these like nice details about how people don't need to upgrade their smart contracts to use Omni. But that's more kind of like, all right, the engineers can read that in the documentation, but at large, like, we're really excited about this opportunity. Just make it easy to use the on-chain economy. It's like a huge pain today doing anything. You got to think about like gas, bridging, different chains and stuff. It's really complex, even for those of us who are like deep in the space, let alone like my mom, who has like, she's just scared of crypto in general, even though she has some Ethereum. But yeah, excited to be here and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Of course, I want us to discuss today Omni Network mission and positioning in the industry. I mean, not brand positioning, I mean in the industry, so people know why it's matter and why it concerns them. Also, I want to discuss, of course, Bitcoin Reserve as it's under radar at the moment, and a bit Ripple, XRP, also because you have this experience, and XRP, I think, is the most controversial
That it is, yeah.
Yes, and it wouldn't be like fair to our audience not to discuss what's going on with altcoin season. So we speak a bit about it.
Cool.
So yeah, to start with, I think you're a mastodon of the industry, and I want you let people know how you came to the industry and how was your experience when you jumped to the industry. I think it was not so popular as today, and how you came to Omni.
Yeah, so I originally got involved, I was still studying computer science at Harvard, and so I got involved more from like the engineering perspective than the speculation side of things. I learned about Ethereum and obviously like Bitcoin and the others at this point in time, but I started teaching myself how to program Solidity, and I was just really excited about the idea of like software that you can just run and nobody can turn off. And so yeah, got originally involved in 2017. I ended up founding my first company while I was still at Harvard, raised venture round for it, built it for 2 years, and we built out this network that I ended up selling to Ripple, worked there for a year. And then, yeah, after Ripple, I quit to start Omni. So that's kind of like how I got involved in like my journey throughout the past, like, yeah, I guess like 7-8 years here.
And what would you do for a living if not crypto and blockchain and not engineering?
Yeah. Honestly, there's no alternative. Like even since so I went to a pretty bad high school. It didn't have any like computer science classes, but I started building some like side businesses at that point in time. They were like, I don't know, kind of like dumb high school type businesses. But one of the key takeaways there is at one point I was building an app, but I had no idea how to build an app. And so I paid somebody to do it. And then I ran out of money. They were like, oh, I can get this done for like 2 grand. And so I only had like 2 grand from this other business I did. So I invested all the profits I made from that into paying this developer, and they just like didn't build the app. And so I was like, okay, if I want to like build companies throughout my career, I need to have a technical background so that I can like at least build an MVP of the like things that I want to build. So maybe a bad answer, but like there is no alternative. I've always wanted to like build companies, and specifically like very technical ones.
Yeah, I see. It's your journey, your mission. And back to the Omni network, it's we can also say that is an on-chain economy focused project.
Mhm.
And I saw like your interviews that you told that it addresses fragmentation and user complexity
Mhm.
in blockchain scalability. So, what progress do you see regarding scalability solutions?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the space, it's really interesting seeing what happened here. Over the past 2 years, it feels like, especially within the Ethereum ecosystem, uh, in 2020, Vitalik was like, "We're doing the roll-up thing. We're going. This is the path forward. This is how we're going to scale it." And then the dominant narrative for how we were actually going to like solve the fragmentation problem for Ethereum almost looked like tying all these roll-ups back together. This primarily came under the like narrative of shared sequencers, which really is just like, in many ways, it's kind of tying these independent things that were intentionally decoupled from one another so that they could scale horizontally. Like that's how we scaled the internet. Like we run millions and millions of computers just next to one another. They don't have to think about one another. They can just like do compute on their own. And over the past, like 2 years here, this shared sequencing narrative got like pretty hot, but like basically no progress has been made on this. The top companies that were driving this forward have kind of like pivoted on this since then. So I think it's very clear at this point, we're never going to solve fragmentation. And fragmentation is actually good because it means we're scaling horizontally, just like we did in the internet. And so the real solution here will come from just making it so that users don't have to think about fragmentation. And that's really the design paradigm that we're like building with at Omni.
Yeah, maybe you partially answered on the questions, but I want to have a clear answer. Why Omni?
Mhm.
Why you're involved in Omni? Why this type of projects?
Yeah.
And what is the mission of Omni Network?
Yeah, I mean, so fundamentally, I care about empowering people across the world with more freedoms, specifically financial freedoms.
Mhm.
There's so many people, like literally billions of people, that are forced to hold currencies that evaporate 20 to 30% every year, sometimes like much more than that. And so I think it's just like net really good for humanity if we let people use more neutral money. So that's like why, that's the reason behind like why I do everything that I do. Why specifically Omni at this point in time? It's because we made a lot of progress, and we can actually, at this point, most transactions are nearly free and instantaneous. Like we've made like pretty substantial progress on that. We were very far from that just a few years ago. The problem now is it's like way too technically complex to use. You have
Mhm.
to think about just all these like technical things that are in the weeds. Like I said, like gas tokens, maybe wrapped assets,
Yeah.
bridging different chains. Like it's just way too complex for the like average person who needs this stuff the most to be able to actually use it. And so that's why we're building Omni. It's because there's a clear missing layer here in the like protocol stack for the Internet of Value that just makes it easier to work across the on-chain economy.
Yeah, we also see the tendency, I wouldn't say a strong tendency. I'm not an expert, but yeah, we see the tendency that asset management firms are about target crypto infrastructure, not coins.
Mm.
And what opportunities do you see in the crypto infrastructure that are attracting asset management firms?
Mhm. Yeah, I think right now the space is questioning for a while, the fat protocol thesis was kind of the main reason that people were investing in L1s. I think a lot of people are questioning that now. I think Ethereum really uh, people have looked at Ethereum as like, what happened here? The business model broke. But I actually think it's really just like the canary in the coal mine. Like, this is what's going to happen to all L1 blockchains. The fees are going to move closer to the applications, and it's going to be captured less by the like L1 blockchains themselves. So I think the space is going through this kind of like disorientation right now because so much money was allocated to like L1 blockchains. What I think people are realizing is that, in a way very similar to just like all other business types, is that what really matters is the customer relationship. So the closer you are to owning the actual customer relationship, the more money you're going to be able to make because you can just charge more fees. That's just like how it works in business historically. And that's also going to be how it works in crypto, which is good because now VCs are saying that it is rational to invest in applications, which we all need. We all know that we need more use cases in the crypto industry. And it's good because VCs are like, oh, I might actually make money if I invest in applications now. So it's good to like rationally allocate capital more to the application layer. If we're talking specifically infrastructure for asset management firms, I think it's related to that. So it's like, what networks or infrastructure are handling user order flow? And that's how we think about it at Omni. Like our like business like KPIs, how we think about is just order flow. How much order flow is the network processing at large? And any infrastructure project focused on that, I think I'm personally very bullish on for the years to come here.
Yeah, thank you. And are you New Yorker?
Yes, I am here in New York right now in our office.
Yeah, I think I saw one of your posts that you are chasing all of this policy and regulation in the
Mhm.
US. So I think it's really will be interesting to know your point of view as you are here.
Mhm.
Um, what's your take on Bitcoin Reserve? Do you think it's more a positive thing or not for crypto industry and for economy of the US, if you can speak on it?
Yeah. I think crypto at large is if used properly, can be incredibly empowering to the US financial strategy. So this mostly manifests in the form of stablecoins. And so like stablecoins are just a way to export the US dollar more throughout the rest of the world. It's already the global reserve currency, and they can solidify that position through the usage of stablecoins. I'm really happy to see that the current administration sees that opportunity. They see that very clearly, and they're prioritizing stablecoin regulation. So that's great. Specifically on the Bitcoin reserve, I think the space, I'm seeing a lot of discussion, and honestly, I think a lot of people are being more short-term oriented about this. And the reason I say that is a lot of people want the government to actively buy Bitcoin. And like, cool, like that would be nice. You know, we would all make money if the government started actively buying Bitcoin. But the risk that builds up is it's possible that Trump is really crazy with stuff that he does. I mean, we all know Trump. He's erratic. He's kind of funny, but like he's erratic, right? And so it's possible that he does some really dumb stuff over the next few years, and the U.S. population whiplashes back, and they want a Democratic president next. And maybe that's Elizabeth Warren. Maybe it's AOC. And if crypto becomes too polarized and it becomes associated with the right, it could make sense for Elizabeth Warren to have like a big red button to just market sell all the Bitcoin and just crash the market. So people, I think right now are upset that there's not a clear plan for the US to actively buy Bitcoin. But I honestly think that's good because like, I don't think it should become too politicized where it's a thing that like, if we get a Democratic president next, they just have a button to like crash the entire market. So, you know, it's pretty crazy to me to see that the government is thinking about this at all. So I think that is like massive progress. But I think where we're at right now is it's just making it harder to sell the Bitcoin that they have. It's actually a very nice mid ground.
Okay, and you mentioned the stablecoins regulation, and I can call this year is really year of stablecoins.
Mhm.
And can you like share your opinion? Why so? Why stablecoins are so popular this year? And we see a lot of new stablecoins. We see like even Mika, Tether was
Yeah.
canceled in Mika, and they find a new way to be presented there. Like, why so?
Yeah. I mean, so the most important thing I think here is that the US government has failed to put productive regulation forward. like full stop. Like we've somehow scaled to a point where there's $200 billion of stable coins on chain, and we still don't have clear regulation on this. So that is really nice to see. The MiCA regulation is TLDR, it's bad. It's like actually hurting business in many ways. I think it's almost like the latest example of European policymakers feeling like they're doing a really good job by creating policy, but it's like not productive policy. And I can just tell you, like on the ground, I'm seeing a lot of businesses that were doing business in Europe that no longer are planning to, they literally can't do business in Europe anymore with a lot of these services that they were providing because of this regulatory framework. And so while I think it's good that people are more open-minded to establishing regulation around this, like that's long overdue, getting good regulation is really important. And like right now, I mean, it's just happening. Like MiCA is hurting the development of crypto in the EU. And so regulation good, but specifically productive regulation is good, because you can mess it up. And I think MiCA is doing that right now.
And do you see some brain drain to US due to this pro-crypto policy?
Mm-hmm.
And regulation, I think regulation affected crypto and blockchain talents move to Dubai, to Singapore.
Yeah,
and
very real.
do you see that any companies are plan to shift some companies to US? And do you see talents are coming here?
Yeah, I think for a long time it's been the opposite of that, where Americans are leaving the US so they can build crypto companies. I mean, I can tell you personally that when we were starting Omni, like I had a very serious conversation with my co-founder where I was like, straight up, we might need to leave the US at some point if like the US bans DeFi somehow. For example, like we might have to leave this country. And like we both love America, like we both were born here, we're both Americans, and we both live here in New York City. But we had to have conversations like that because that was just the state of the industry, that it literally might become illegal to do like anything with crypto. And so now we're at a point where it's like, okay, that's not going to happen. It's good that new American entrepreneurs don't have to have conversations like that, because it's pretty ridiculous. Like, hey, do you want to start a startup? We might need to like move to Asia, but like, do you want to start a startup? So it's good that we are clearly past that point. But I don't think that we're seeing a reversal yet, because it's more like vibes. You know, Trump's like, crypto, we like crypto, but we haven't seen any like policy put in place yet that would specifically make it helpful to move a US based company. It's more just like rumors, like, oh, maybe there's no cap gains tax on crypto assets issued in the US. Like, that's all rumors. I don't think we're going to see an actual reversal. I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of pandering from companies that have some association with America. They're like, oh, we're a US based crypto, you know, we want to like be in this reserve and stuff, which like, I like, whatever. People are playing their games. But like, nobody's actually moving anything offshore onshore right now, because the US still does not have a regulatory policy for what that would even look like, let alone whether that's good or not. So it's mostly people like posturing and like trying to ride the wave of like, oh, like US based crypto, this is going to be good for us. Actually, the only company that I like know or have a pretty high degree of confidence that was like actually US based, and like the token was issued here, was Ripple. And so like a lot of the other companies just do this offshore today, because like that is the most legally compliant way to do it, because there's actually frameworks elsewhere. But XRP was created before these like other paradigms were set up. So that's kind of the only one that I think has a more legitimate claim to this. But yeah, I think a lot of people are just, this is just like marketing primarily that's happening right now, because there is no new policy yet.
Yeah, it's kind of theory and practice, and we are far from the practice. Yeah, and as you mentioned, Ripple, I did a lot of interviews and podcasts with traders, like crypto influencers, and they are more pro crypto guys. And a big part of them, they called XRP a garbage token. And I know that Ripple and XRP is a bit different projects, but anyway, what's your opinion on XRP?
Yeah, I'm in a funny position because so my first company was an interoperability network that worked across multiple networks. So actually, like in 2017, I was working on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. And so I have always had a very like multi-chain perspective that we're never going to have like one chain to rule them all. Like Bitcoin, yeah, it probably is going to win the like store of value, like gold, digital gold type narrative. But obviously, these things can do far more than Bitcoin is capable of doing. So we're going to have like mini chains. That's been clear to me for like 7 to 8 years, and why I've worked on interoperability for that entire time. So one thing that has happened throughout that is like over the past few years, I've gone pretty deep in the Ethereum ecosystem, and people hate XRP in the Ethereum ecosystem. They hate this thing, like they really do. And I
Yes.
don't like, I think it's because there's like very strong ideological, like decentralization is like the most important thing. It's very like, it's all very ideological, you know, across the industry. But people who buy XRP don't really care about decentralization. They care far more. Like why you would buy XRP is you believe the existing financial system is very slow and has room for serious improvement. And you believe that Ripple is going to drive a big impact there, and they are going to use XRP as that solution. That's why people buy XRP. It's not because they like believe in some incredibly neutral, decentralized smart contract platform. That's not the point. But yeah, like these communities do not like each other. And so I kind of like sit across like the Bitcoin, ETH, and like Ripple communities. And it's funny, like, they just don't like each other. But to each of their credit, they do bring something individually unique to the table. Bitcoin is beautiful. It's the first one. You know, you can say what you want about the tech, but like it's Bitcoin. Like there's a reason that like it is the primary asset that these nation states are talking about accumulating. XRP, it has Ripple, which has almost like 1,000 employees, maybe more at this point in time, actually, driving integration into the actual traditional financial system. Ethereum does not have that. Like Ethereum does not have that like clear and focused of leadership. But that, you know, kind of brings its value prop to the table, where it's this very like credibly neutral platform for running smart contract software. So I don't know, sometimes I post about these different communities and then they all fight each other in the replies on my tweets. But I don't know, I think they each bring something to the table, but it's just fun. They just don't like each other. So that's kind of like how I think about the different like larger chains that are out there today.
Yeah, you explained it very well, because I'm XRP fan, Ripple fan. I am in the industry because of Ripple. When I heard about Bitcoin, it was something like shit. But when I read about Ripple, I see that financial system, it like prospectively can change, and I came to the industry. But yeah, let's speak shortly about altcoin season.
Yeah.
I feel that people are upset
Oh yeah.
about it. So do you think we see altcoin season this year? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so for anybody who is newer this cycle, like historically what we see is Bitcoin and the majors pump, and then like more liquidity comes into the system, and that kind of flows into these different altcoins. We're not really seeing that right now. So I think a lot of people are, you know, upset. And so like, why is that happening? So honestly, I think one huge thing is noise. There are so many of these different altcoins at this point in time that's actually really hard to know like what is legit, what is not legit. And just, you know, even the ones that are legit, there's so many of them. So it's hard to kind of like get them to stand out and like get more attention at this point in time. On top of that, I think we're seeing a lot of liquidity flow into the ecosystem through not directly like centralized exchanges or like decentralized exchanges anymore. You know, ETFs are pulling a lot of liquidity into Bitcoin, but it's not like that liquidity can easily go into altcoins next when people make money. And so structurally, we're seeing the market change a decent amount here. And I think that that's having impacts on the altcoin market. So obviously the whole altcoin market just got like smacked hard. And honestly, you know, how I think about my investing, like especially for like longer tail altcoins, is don't like at this point, it's going to be really hard to make money on just like the narrative. You know, like people are going to be thinking about these things more critically. The space is still very untethered from like fundamentals, like how much revenue is a chain making. But like honestly, like think critically about what these different projects are doing and think like, okay, does the business model make sense? Like, is this thing actually going to make money? And two, like, is it making money? That's how we're thinking about things at Omni, is like, if you don't have a clear business model at this point in time and you're an altcoin, like, oh, like that's a scary spot to be in. Like for example, for Omni, like the thesis here is that the on-chain economy is maturing substantially, but people are held back from using it because it's too complex to move across all these chains and stuff. And so the way Omni makes money is anytime value flows through the network, it can take a fee on that. And so what we care about, our North Star from a metric perspective, is just like how much order flow is like being processed through the network. And like that's directly tied to how much money that the network is making. So like pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's not like I have to explain zero knowledge proofs to you or something in order to explain that. And that's, I think, how people should think about it. It's like, can this sound reasonable without talking about like buzzword salad in order for me to kind of like feel like I kind of know what's going on? Yeah, I think some of these altcoins are going to go to zero. And I think it's the like teams that got into this because they were short-term oriented and wanted to like tell a narrative, but didn't really build anything of that like can make money and like can provide value. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be pretty ruthless in the altcoin market over the next like 6 to 9 months here. Yeah, I think the trade war is one of the biggest things that like will determine like whether the altcoin market picks up or not in the short term here.
Yeah, hopefully. What trends in crypto and Web3 you excite the most right now, and how
Yeah.
does Omni align with them?
Yeah. The number one is like intents and chain abstraction. And so this obviously is exactly where Omni sits. Like it's the biggest problem in the industry right now. Like it's just too difficult to use the on-chain economy. And when you're using chain abstraction type technologies and intents, which is like one way that you can abstract away chains, that's how we're going to solve it. As somebody who has worked on interoperability for 8 years now, that this is how we're going to solve it. It's intents. Like that is the path forward. I've worked on a bunch of these different technologies, like different solutions within interoperability, trying to solve this. And at this point, it's never been more clear. The path forward is intents. So that's the one that I think is solving the biggest problem in the space, and the path is forward is the most clear. So that's number one. Past that, tokenization is the second wave that I'm really excited about here. We always see this as markets go up and down. One of the biggest opportunities I see within tokenization is corporate bonds being put on chain. And so we've kind of like found ways to bring off-chain yield on chain. And so this has happened through like stable coins and treasury bills and stuff, where you can like actually take treasury bill yield and like distribute it to people on chain. What comes next though is corporate bonds, where like companies can like sell bonds and bring that off-chain yield on chain. That's what's going to really matter, especially in a market downturn here. So tokenization at large, I think stocks are cool, but like corporate bonds actually are going to be bigger because it's about the yield. And then the third thing here, I spend less time focused on this, but AI agents, pretty cool. AI is just getting insanely good. Like the acceleration rate is just pretty wild. And for a long time, I thought AI x crypto was like a scam and didn't make any sense. But with agents, it makes sense to me. It's like, oh, well, like what's the actual rational overlap between these two technologies? It's that you give the AIs money. That's like the overlap. And so there's a lot of experimentation going on right now. Probably 95 to 99% of it will just, fade into irrelevance. But that is going to play a huge role in this long term, but it's in like the earliest stages.
Yeah, thank you. This makes sense. What's your goal? I mean, what's goal for Omni Network for this year, and maybe you have planned for front?
Yeah. So basically where we're at with the technology right now is at the end of last year, we released our mainnet, which is focused on the interoperability component. So it's like the chains need to be able to talk to each other. The thing that we've kind of stalled out on as an industry at large is like, that's where we stopped. We're like, oh, well, we've solved it. The chains can talk to each other. You can like go bridge. You can send messages from one to another. That's like almost like getting to a point in the internet though, where we only created TCP IP and we didn't create the protocols on top of it, like DNS or HTTPS. So that's almost like every time you load a website, you have to think about all the packets coming in and stuff instead of just loading the website. And so there's just like a very clear opportunity to work at a higher level of abstraction, and that's intents. And so we're building what's called SolverNet. And the way that we're initially taking this to market is there's a front end SDK. This has just been like a huge problem for a like really ever since we started having multiple chains, where if you build an application, you're kind of siloed to like the users of that chain, because you have to go deploy it on some chain, and that chain has some percent of the users in the ecosystem. And a few years ago, this was like maybe okay. It's like, well, I don't know, at least you get a third of the users in the on-chain economy. Now, though, it's a huge problem. Like now, when you deploy an application, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem, if you want to have like actual usage, you have to go just find a chain, and you're going to get like 5% of the total addressable users. And so that's really hard for them to just like actually see momentum and adoption of their application. And so what we're doing here is we have SolverNet, which is this like intent network that runs on top of the core interoperability protocol. And it takes a few hours to plug into the front end of a dApp. And you can just accept money from anywhere at that point in time. It doesn't matter if your application is on Arbitrum, if somebody has their money on Optimism, they can just like go click a button and deposit, and they don't need to think about bridging or anything like that. So that's the core like product we're taking to market here. That is going to be the primary focus for Q1, Q2, and Q3. Later in this year, though, we're going to start scaling it out to like centralized exchanges, so that people don't have to think about chains at all. If they buy some coin, they can just have a button that says like, I don't know, get the highest APY across like top 10 safest lending protocols, and they won't need to think about gas or chains or anything. So we're going to kind of like, we're starting with this SDK for developers. Then we're going to move to like actual like user platforms, like centralized exchanges. And long term, where we're taking this is like fintech companies, so like Revolut and stuff, where it's just like users they won't think about what's actually going on behind the scenes. They'll just care about their financial outcomes, and Omni will just make that happen. So that's kind of like our 2025 roadmap.
Yeah, and finally, it's all about user experience, even if it's more like technical side, but finally it can turn to users experience.
Yeah, which is it's great, because I mean, it's kind of crazy because the UX has gotten worse like over the past few years, and it's almost like it got so bad that we all like had to stop and be like, okay, can we actually solve this now? But like now I see a point like this isn't going to be in our V1, but with the Omni SDK, we already have this working internally where the users don't need to pay gas at all. So it's like, not only do they not need to think about chains, like very soon users won't need to think about gas at all. They won't need to like pay gas in order to submit a transaction. And so, yeah, I see the technical roadmap here, and it's like very soon we're going to see pretty substantial improvements here. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming to our podcast. Who are watching this podcast and haven't subscribed, please do this right now, top the bottom below to subscribe. And if you have any piece of advice to our audience, or you would like to share, if you have any news break for future or partnership, you can share.
Yeah. So I don't know when we'll post this, but we are going to have our first testnet, or really this will be our fourth testnet, but it'll be for SolverNet specifically. So this SDK is going to go live for the first time with Symbiotic. That is coming up. Follow me at 0xASK or at OmniFDN on Twitter. We're going to have news about that coming up very shortly here. Any parting advice though? Yeah, I mean, where we're at in the market, I'll go with this. Where we're at in the market, this always happens. I've been through like 3 of these cycles at this point. You can make a decision. You can like look at the market, like and where it's at, and just see prices going down and think like, oh, this was all a scam. Like I got scammed and like none of this made sense. Or you can like, zoom out and see that people are using stablecoins to flee local currencies and escape inflation. And like this is making an impact across the world today. And we just always go do this cycle pattern. So it's kind of like you can go like see what's happening in the market, get bummed out, sell your coins, leave the space, think it was a scam. Or you can just realize like this is how it works. Like numbers go up really quickly and they go down really quickly. But what's happening here is like it's actually going to consume the global financial system. And we're making like pretty crazy progress on that compared to even what I would have guessed like 2 years ago. So yeah, I think it's just like, don't get stressed about the market right now. Great teams are still building and we're still making great progress.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining. It was really interesting to speak with you.
Likewise.
I hope who are watching this podcast will be impressed. And I wish you all the best, and wish Omni Network to be top of the other like lawyers.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you as well. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, yeah, one more time, thank you for joining. It was really happy to meet you and to chat with you.